Welcome along to the AG Talks podcast. Here, what we're going to be doing is talking all things construction, recruitment, and sharing valuable lessons with industry leaders to ultimately help you succeed. Today, I'm joined by Miss Hannah Lawson. Hannah, to give you a quick intro, is the co-founder of Amundson Group. She is our chief queen of the company, is an industry expert, and is here today to share some valuable lessons and some insights in all things construction. So welcome along, Hannah.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here.
I know. So we set our company up in a garage. This is probably like the most formal thing.
This is a very formal setting for me. And AG.
It is. I mean, we've upgraded. I mean, we were originally started our company off with a couple of beanbags and a
beanbags, a garage, some large extractor fans to try and get some air moving in the garage. But we've come a long way since then.
I know. Look at us.
Yeah,
we're getting there.
Yeah.
So, talk me through. I mean, obviously the intro can't do. Yeah, it's nowhere near as good as who you are. So, talk to me about kind of what you do and why we're here today.
Absolutely. I'm not even really sure where to go with that question, to be honest, because we've come so far in 2 years since we started AG.
Yeah.
Obviously, AG is a huge part of who I am as a person.
Yeah.
I embody everything about AG and what we're about. And I think what's most integral to me about AG and yourself is our vision.
Yeah.
The biggest reason why anybody would ask me why I've joined Amundson Group or why I'm still here is our vision and yourself.
Oh, that's nice.
I know, it's quite nice sometimes. Everything that Amundson Group is about growth. And we're about sharing lessons, and we're about, being that integral part to the construction industry.
Yeah.
Which I truly, truly feel really, really special to be a part of. It's an integral part of America and about the US and the growth that the US is engaged in. And it's fundamentally, you're working with real people across the US, which I love the most.
We got a lot to get into then.
We do.
Let's start this off. How did we get here?
Okay.
I mean, I know when you work in your market, and I know you're the go-to person, but just for the audience here, to tell it, how did we get to where we are now in your journey?
How did I get here? Okay, let's work backwards then. Well, 4 years ago, I was a physical therapist.
I know.
Which is wild. So I used to work on a ward. I'd treat people with spinal injuries and traumatic brain injuries. And when I moved to Houston with my now husband,
Congrats.
thank you. I knew I wanted to get into a new industry. My hand was kind of forced based off my background and having a different degree. And joined another organisation where I met Alex, who was my surefire cracker, who taught me everything I know and who I am today.
Too kind.
And he used to take me for lunch weekly to a sushi restaurant. He knew that was my go-to. Treat me for lunch every single week, and twisted my arm one day when he told me he was going to set up his own company and would I join. And obviously it was a no-brainer on my side. And since then, obviously it was an interesting start, difficult start, 2020, with all the craziness that was going on in the world. But we got through it together. And, obviously we've grown exponentially in the last 2 years, and it's been wild to see everything that we've implemented and changed, and the industry in which we've become masters of. I'm going to call myself a master of the industry.
Sure. That's pretty to get from. You're working in wards. If I remember rightly, you told me about helping people with spinal injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's some transition. Like, how did you find that?
Hard. Yeah, it was really difficult initially.
Really?
Because you'd come from such a structured routine day to day where you knew what you were doing from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And essentially walking into a sales role, it was a very different mindset. So personally, I've gone through a lot of growth from a just shifting of mindset and belief in myself. And, a thanks to our wider team, trainer, and obviously Lynette as well. Big shout out to her. But it's been mostly just a big mind shift and believing in myself, really.
It's a lot to go into, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to break down some of this. I know there's a lot to share, and I know everyone's anxious to hear from you. So let's start it off this way. Where does your passion for the industry come from with construction in mind?
That's easy. It's the people, honestly. I speak with hundreds of people every single week, and it is their passion that I love for what they do, which is where my passion comes from. So it's not every day that you get to speak to people that love what they do and are happy to go to work for 12 hours a day and still go home with a smile on the face. And you know, if people have been looked after and treated correctly, which I'm sure we'll go into, you know, there's these guys and women love what they do, and I think that's where my passion for construction and site development really comes from and stems from, is seeing these people be happy and grow, you know, in successful companies, and ultimately helping my clients too, you know, bringing them on board to help them and be successful and win more work. So
do you see any similarities between the kind of construction field and the medical field that you're from at all?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a similarity from the passion perspective, because a lot of people, you know, it's real people. You are working with people when you're working in the medical field as well. So there's a lot of passion and, you know, crossover from that respect. People are, in the construction sector, open to ideas and open to support, which I think is something that, if you've got that level of respect with a lot of the candidates and clients that you speak to, it's very transferable from a medical perspective as well. That's so cool. People will take on board what you're saying, and it does take time to get to that point, but there is you know, you're heard, I think, is what I really enjoy as well, and that's a big crossover between medical. Yeah.
We make no bones about it, right? We work in a very, very competitive industry.
Mm-hmm.
I know when we drew up plans on our sushi napkin, I
hope you still got it. Yeah,
I've got it somewhere. Yeah. Well, you won't be able to read it; it's my handwriting. But one of the things I know we talked about was that obviously our industry is competitive, but what makes you unique? You know, obviously you've got a different take on things, but what makes you in kind of the work that you do unique to the industry?
I think first of all, my accent, mate. You know, there's not many British chicks that live in Texas that just work in the Carolinas and Georgia.
But you do know all your yals.
I do know my yals, yeah, and I'm looking to buy a truck, so I'm getting there.
You wanted to go on a hoverboat yesterday, so
yeah, that's my next team outing, is an airboat, as they call it. Need for speed.
Do you think that's what your the ability to talk about being unique? Do you think your ability of seeing multiple different industries and different ways of working helps you?
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to draw on a lot of the skills that I learned when I worked in the wards and in physical therapy as a whole has enabled me to communicate effectively. So I think my most unique ability is my communication and my ability to build a rapport and level of trust pretty much instantaneously. I'll back myself on that one. I think that obviously I know my market inside and out, and I am a go-to individual with in the site development space in my areas, but I think it's the fact that people can trust me.
Where do you think that's obviously something that I know you've always talked about being really passionate about, is the word, whenever I speak to you, the word trust comes. Why is that really why is that front and center of your thinking at the moment?
It's just important to me. My reputation means a lot. I personally am quite a trustworthy person to friends and family. So I think if that's mirrored in my professional side of life, then, you know, to me that's what's most important. What else makes me unique, do you think?
I mean, you have you can consume a lot of alcohol. That's like the most hidden skill I've ever seen.
I'll drink everyone under the table.
That is a shout out to the whole of the construction industry. If you want to take on Hannah the Hurricane Lawson, be my guest. I tried.
I've got a few nicknames.
I was
Hurricane, Havoc.
You've got a few, haven't you?
Yeah.
So one thing I know that the audience is going to be really, really interested in is your perspective on kind of what issues you're seeing as a whole in the construction industry, and what particular your clients. So what difficulties are you seeing your clients, say, having at the moment?
What's everyone complaining about most of all? So I would say the number one thing that is a common theme that obviously it can only really be impacted by the economy. There's a couple of things, but I'll shoot with
Please.
This one first. I think most of it is the material shortage that everyone seems to be complaining and moaning about. Obviously, that's mostly a supply and demand issue, just generally across the US. Okay. A lot of people within something that I might be able to help them with is to do with the retention of, let's say, sort of the labourers or maybe the operators and, the guys that are out in the field, they're grafting, they're hard working. And obviously it depends on the size of the organisation, but I think that is usually a typical complaint that I'm noticing just generally across the Carolinas, that there's a real issue with retaining those guys and encouraging them to be bought into the vision of the company rather than, moving jobs the next 2 months because of, the next buck, etc. So it's a lot of education on the front end from the client, of which I've done, to when you're bringing in these lower operators and hourly guys that are, invaluable to an organisation within our sector, that they need to be educating them about the vision and where they can get to, rather than...
Yeah, that's a really good point that you raised. Do you think companies are having to change the way that they hire and they attract people?
Yeah, 100%. It used to be, and I would say in the last couple of years, quite transactional.
Yeah.
But I think there's been a huge shift in the last 5-10 years that people buy with emotions, right? So there's a big shift into drawing out the future for a lot of people and helping them visualize what's coming. And I think, the more companies can engage in, I hate to say it, but, sexy PowerPoints and information booklets and the more people, the more times that they engage and increase their communication with prospective employees, then the chances of their retention are going to be much higher. The biggest reason why, I'm going to draw on some experiences from this morning. Typically a lot of our work's headhunting, right? So it's all tracking of people from a period of time. So most people that I work with typically have a real, and I'll call it real, motivation to leave an employer, because. And those motivations are typically maybe there's a project that's coming to an end and that employer has no projects that, again, are in that local town or in that city and they want to move them elsewhere. There's other reasons such as the type of work. The company may have shifted towards a different industry away from, commercial residential site development towards, home building or wastewater. And the guys that may come to me say, hey, look, I love the company, but they've shifted their business model. Mismanagement, I would say, and just general demeanour to a lot of the staff that just call themselves, and this is often what they call themselves, just a number. Yeah. Which usually comes down to people not feeling respected, heard, that kind of thing. That's a usual complaint. So again, that sort of ties in with communication, really.
Yeah.
What else? What else?
It's quite a lot, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People. You helped me with this. I mean, people move for so many different reasons, and it's very very rarely just a number, right?
Yeah, very rarely. Yeah.
You talk.
It's difficult when it is just a number. Very difficult when it is just a number. It's just not going to go.
There's obviously a whole concoction of issues that the industry are facing, and I know in the past what we talked about. Unfortunately, the recruitment industry gets a bad rap. Mm-hmm. We there's a lot of people in it for the wrong reasons. Can you talk to how do you really help your clients and your candidates? What's really the value that you bring to that to both sides?
I think it's the attention to detail that I go into on both sides. I take the time to understand what's important to them and why. I'll go and see people because I really see
we pay for your
my
air miles.
expensive wine dinner lunches. It's
now we're finding out about that, huh?
Mm-hmm, yeah. One too many cocktails. No, it's the power of FaceTime, looking people in the whites of the eyes. I think is, again, it kind of feeds back to that trust point, doesn't it? I think I have the ability, not that it's an ability, but I take it really seriously, I think. And if I can't help you, no worries. If you're not needing any support from me, that's great. Good for you. That's how I kind of view that. But this is my service. This is what I can provide. This is how I can help you. And if I can, awesome, great. I'm all on board. You've got me. You've got all of me. You get everything from the first day we start working together. Never afraid to kind of walk away from any problems on both client and candidate side. If there's ever an issue, I'll handle it. I think that's probably one of my biggest, the emergency button.
Okay, tell me more.
So a lot of the conversations I have with clients is all about strategical hiring for the years based on projects that are coming up, projects that are finishing, in new areas, new geographical locations. So I'll have my team look proactively at searches for a lot of my clients, but often it does happen that it is more reactive.
Okay.
And that someone may leave at one of my clients and they call me on a 6 p.m. on a Friday night, which has happened quite a lot recently.
Which is wine o'clock.
Yeah. I'll often be in a bar.
I mean, that's just standard, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's me. That's what I classify as the emergency button. And I'll do everything within my power to help that client out.
Yeah. If you were, let's kind of flip this question a little bit. If you were a client looking for some help interviewing, because we talked about retention rates earlier, and we talked about people struggling to identify the right people. What advice have you got for clients actually interviewing?
Sure. Take your time.
Okay.
I think I've noticed a common theme that a lot of people spend maybe 15, 20 minutes. And if you're going to spend a lot of money bringing this person on with benefits and truck, and it's a lot. So take your time in the interview process. Get to know the person. Get the person to relax initially. Just have a sort of a generic 10 to 15 minute conversation initially, just to get to know the individual, who they're about, their family. And some clients do really, really well at this. And even if that might be in a more informal setting, take them for lunch, that kind of thing. Then you really get to know who the person is when they actually relax into a conversation. So that would kind of be my biggest ticket. And I would always advise clients to ask for feedback themselves.
Okay, explain why.
I think that I've said so many times.
No, it's important, isn't it? You feedback. We can speak from experience that you'd be amazed at how many people have no idea how the interview went. Yeah. And then they wait weeks, right? Yeah.
And I think it's important because the candidate will always come to us and say, "Oh, why didn't they move forward with me?" But often the candidate may not want to move forward with that company, and the client might be going, "What did we do wrong?" Yeah. So ask them, because one of the questions I encourage my candidates to ask is, "What reservations or concerns do you have about me and my skill set and stuff?" So that in the interview you can discuss it pretty frankly. But I think what's important is the client says, "How have you found this interview process? Is there anything that I could have done better?" Be humble in your thinking to enable you to get better as well, because a lot of the industry, it's not transactional anymore. It's a big shift towards emotional buy-in from people, because it's about the culture and the communication.
Do you find from you obviously work with a big portfolio of clients, so I know daily we talk about people that aren't right for us. Can you give some input on how important the experience is for the candidate? I know you talk about it at length about how important it is to send the right documents, have directions. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah. I think it's really important that the candidate feels important and special. I would say. Like if you finish up an interview and say, yep, we'll get back to you by tomorrow night in a business, and don't do that, is immediately a negative reaction. You know, if you've said something and don't follow up on it, and haven't given a legitimate reason as to why, I just think that immediately puts a negative connotation in people's mouths. So
difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, people just don't feel loved, and it's important. Like if you get two people and one person, you know, has been shown a little bit more love, maybe a few more conversations, or has been taken to a job site over another individual, you know, they're a little bit more, they've been invested in, then they're more bought into the process.
Cool.
The company, yeah.
So let's kind of talk about where you see, I know your mainly focus is the Carolina region, North Carolina, South Carolina.
Yep.
And also Georgia as well. I know you play a big imprint. What do you see the kind of next few months and years look like for those markets as a whole?
Yeah. It's interesting. I was having a conversation yesterday just about the Carolinas in general. You know, South Carolina from a DOT perspective is going crazy. So
didn't they waste all their money a few years? Was it South?
That was North Carolina.
Was it North Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and Georgia, I mean, Atlanta is I think in top 5. Yeah, it's pretty confident. It's in the top 5. You know, just fastest growing. It is absolutely popping down that way. So, you know, the growth is not stopping. I think I see huge developments on the highway between sort of Atlanta and the Raleigh, Greensboro way, I-85. You know, there's talks with pretty much all of my clients of roadway and residential builds as that kind of been a main corridor between the Carolinas and Georgia over the next couple of years. I know there's a lot of talks and bids and potential opportunity there for a number of my clients too. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
Yeah.
I know one of the things that we talked at length about is helping people get into the industry. And something you're really passionate about is obviously women in business and enabling. I always laugh because we're both millennials, right? Mm-hmm. Technically. Mm-hmm. I'm older than Hannah is just for record.
80s child.
I know I look it as well. But how can we, what advice have you got for helping companies attract the younger people into the industry? How can we solve this problem?
I think social media is going to become a huge input. I know a lot of companies go to these career fairs and that kind of thing, and that's good. I think that's definitely influential. But I think a huge point of it will be it's the social media aspect. A lot of these companies don't have a LinkedIn, and all these younger guys all these younger guys, or an Instagram page or a Facebook page, they're all on it. You know, it's huge these days. It's about you know, you need to be present, you need to be seen, and it needs to be kind of funny, and like your presence has to be cool. Like you can't oversee the power of social media. Like we see it, don't we, in our like attracting people to our company.
Yeah, I know you talked something that really, really grasped my attention the other day. You talked about secondary marketing and how you'd seen candidates. I remember you telling them about a client, and then they'd actually gone then and researched them afterwards on their
Instagram
LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn. Yeah.
I mean that. Talk me through how just powerful.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Yeah, so powerful. It's so important. Even just the website. Like, it takes 2 seconds to click on someone's website, and if it's cool and it's got videos and good pictures and it looks attractive, you know, it's education to a lot of my clients that I currently work with about the power of it. Something that people take really seriously, especially to the younger guys as we were just talking about.
Why do you think that's not been a focus for these companies then?
Because I think it's a relatively new, I mean, the last 15 years has been a huge shift towards social media, but it's a generational thing. I think that people haven't recognized the power of it, but also it's time consuming, and people don't have that much time, and it's, you know, you need to potentially employ someone to do this full time for you these days, which costs money. So but if you can't see the benefit of it, then you're not going to do it. So it's about explaining the benefit of it to them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're going to kind of do a bit of a wrap up into kind of you and kind of really what you do, and then we're going to go into some quick fire questions. Okay. I've prepared some funny ones.
Okay, good.
One of them is, who's the funniest? I hope the answer's me. Everyone that knows Hannah, Hannah thinks I'm the most unfunny person in the company. So obviously our focus has been technical hires. So is it mostly project managers you're hiring at the moment, or is it other areas?
It honestly is a bit of a mix. So my key skill sets that I focus in, grade and utilities foreman, superintendents across grade and pipe, or just generally a site superintendent and project managers. I do have the occasional field engineer role or APM and estimators. So I decided not to go sort of beyond those key skill sets. Just based off the need of a lot of my clients in the industry. Those sort of seem to be common themes. Okay. But it's a bit of a mixed bag, in all honesty.
Wow. And if people were to try and get in contact with you, obviously I know that you're going to have, it happens daily, doesn't it? Clients and candidates reach out to you. How is best to reach out to you?
Probably by cell.
Are you going to give your phone number out on this podcast? Right. We'll put a link on the bottom for everyone.
Link to my cell is probably the easiest because I'm always on it. As my email as well, obviously, is super accessible, and probably LinkedIn too. So that's probably the easiest way.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you for having me.
You're the first guest.
I am.
Exciting. You're going to be sat on this side of the table soon. Thank you for everyone for listening to that. Hopefully you found some insightful tips, tricks, and some actionable ideas and points to help you. Just as a quick summary here, Hannah remains absolutely pivotal to the industry. We're blessed to have her as part of our company. I can speak firsthand of just how great she is, and from the bottom of my heart, I'm just really proud to call you my business partner, my co-founder,
/queen,
/diva, So this is now. She missed a word there. She abuses Alex on a daily basis. But no, thank you for doing that, Hannah. I look forward to continue this journey.
Awesome. Yep.
And on to the next podcast of AG Talks.
Absolutely.